morning. How are we all doing today, chat? Yes, I have done all of the massive boomer things. What can I say? That's why you come to this show. That's just how it is, to watch me do boomer things. And if that's not why you're here, you are making a mistake. For some reason, not only am I boomering in usual technological ways, I'm also like right in the center of the screen because reasons. Thank you, OBS. That is exactly what I needed. Good looking out, I guess. All right. So, we are, of course, back to manual things. I have noticed that a whole ton of you do not seem to be thoroughly enjoying this, but I'm going to continue doing it anyway, as long and painful as it's going to be, regardless, because it needs to happen anyhow. There is, okay. I'm going to say this for literally the last time. There will not be increased audio until I move. There won't. Here's how this works. One of two things happens. Either there's giant hiss in the background, or I'm a little bit quiet. That's it. The end. We're not doing this anymore. Speaking of which, if you're on YouTube, get off YouTube and go over to, say, I don't know, Entropy or DLive, or probably not DLive. And equally speaking, Trovo seems to be okay-ish for the moment. Supposedly, Odyssey has streaming, but I can't stream there. So for those of you who keep DMing me and tweeting at me and blah, 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 saying, hey, Don, why aren't you streaming on Odyssey? I can't. This is the same situation with Rumble, who supposedly was going to have both of them. We're going to have streaming by this point, and so I don't know. According to both of them, I should be able to stream there. According to both of them, when I actually go there, I cannot stream there. So that's basically that. I wish that I could. As soon as I can, I will. I have, however, been informed by the fine people who do what will invariably be where we end up permanently, which is to say Entropy, that people on Odyssey are already being banned. So for all of you hoping that that is my free speech alternative that is going to save us all, apparently no. Apparently we are going to end up dealing with this kind of stupidity no matter what. And the only people who seem to be holding the line on this are indeed Entropy. So, we'll move to Entropy as a primary source. And by the way, for those of you who are on YouTube, once Entropy gets streaming direct to them set up, there is a very high likelihood, and by the way, for everybody on DLive and Trovo, this is also going to apply to you. There's a very high likelihood that is what is going to happen is I'm going to stream direct to Entropy, and then I am going to upload it to platforms later. And in the world of YouTube, it's basically just going to be cut as a commercial. So, if you don't want to put up with that, you're probably going to want to click on the description and wherever it is that you're watching and find, oh, I don't know, the Entropy channel, and go there. And also follow, say, the Rumble, or I guess you could follow Odyssey, but what are you going to do? The chances that I get kicked off there are pretty high. Okay, so a thing happened, and everyone and their brother was surprised about it. And if you're watching this series, you should not be, specifically because we have covered this particular kind of thing even recently. And I know that this video is out there in a ton of places, and it doesn't really matter where you get it, blah, blah, blah. Also, Secret Squirrel Server is good. Indeed. Secret Squirrel Server will indeed be around no matter what happens, though it will go down when I move, out of raw necessity. So, this video came from, if I recall correctly, Portland. There is a guy who is blocked in traffic by Antifa, blah, blah, blah. It's all the things you would expect. Give me just a second here. I'm just going to play this, and then we'll talk about why it's important.
You better not! You better fucking not! You better fucking not! You better fucking not! Put your fucking gun down! Put your fucking gun down! Hey, back the fuck up! Leave! Get out of here now! Get out now! Leave! Leave! Fucking leave! Leave! Don't you fucking dare! Get the weapon! Get the weapon! Get the weapon! Get him on the ground!
Now, I understand video quality is shit, audio is shit, and I apologize. I did not make this video, obviously. However, this is, if you are reading an insurgent manual, the time that Antifa is going to be escalating to violence, which, by the way, for those of you who have been telling me for years, oh, lol, Dawn, they're just a bunch of soy boy douchebags, how's that going? There's another angle of this, and the guy, and I don't have it, the guy that is in the video is holding an AR. They are drawing down pretty heavily, right? This is any sort of movement checkpoint that you have seen anywhere. Yes, it's orchestrated badly. I'm not saying that they're Navy SEALs. Please stop, for the love of God. When I say they are escalating tactics, when I say they are getting better at this does not mean that all of them are Jocko Willink. It doesn't, and I don't care how many of you want to insist that that's what it means. That's not what it means. That's never what it will mean, presumably, though maybe they get there someday. In the meantime, they are indeed holding ground. They are indeed, escalating tactics. They are indeed learning from their failures, and at least as importantly, they're getting effectively no pushback from police. This is pretty equivalent to when Obama was sitting on TV saying, hey, ISIS is the JV team, we don't really care about them. That's basically what everyone is doing right now. So for all of you who thought that was a dumb idea, that is the idea you are forwarding. And by the way, look at how that turned out. And of course, we ended up fighting ISIS for a very long time. So, this is a bad sign. I don't know how else to say that. But you need to understand that in the world of, if we're watching an insurgency grow, this is the time where they get actually dangerous. I have noted that everyone's favorite milquetoast fence sitter is talking about this morning, and his take is horrifically bad. It's the same thing that, or at least he's learning that his takes are horrifically bad. It's the same thing I've been telling you for a long time. It will not be the right that starts this. It won't. And here's the left doing this. Everyone and their brother should know by now that the left is given pretty well free rein to do whatever they want, and the right must respond to it. And by the way, if you respond in a way that is effective, really, what you will get is shot. So, understand that for this guy who drew his gun, by the way, with a dozen people pointing weapons at him, there is unlikely to be anything good that comes of this. Not to mention, if you are in this position, first of all, don't be. Literally never, I don't care what you have to do not be in a position where you are surrounded by 50 people, half of them with guns, because this is what will happen to you. And by the way, they own you at this point. And okay, maybe you get your Wyatt Earp moment where, you run up like Kurt Russell and put your gun to somebody's head and One of the other guys says, he's bluffing. Let's rush him, and you get to say, "Not before I turn your head into a canoe," and that's great. That's great. I'm happy for you. Right after that, you die. You do. And look, if you're okay with that, then by all means. But in the meantime, you should not be standing in a situation where there's 50 people around you, at least half of them armed, and they are all hostile to you. If you are in that position, you are in the worst tactical position on earth. And look, if they come to your house and there's nothing you can do about it, that's one thing. If you are driving down a street and you see this giant horde of people, I hope you brought your favorite SEAL team with you. Because if you didn't, this is a horrifically bad situation to be in. And why do I say favorite SEAL team? Because presumably if you had, 30, 40, 50 guys, if you got a battalion of Marines in your back pocket, be in this position, right? Go right ahead. Because you can stand out front, and a battalion of Marines are going to be standing behind you going, yeah, go ahead. That's not the position most of us are in. This is a horrifically bad idea. Look, if you happen to find yourself vaguely in some position like this, the only real thing you can do is get out of it as fast as humanly possible, because you are dealing with an insurgency that is growing in initiative, violence, willingness to pick these fights, etc., and they know they will not have consequences, and you will. So what you will end up with is some situation exactly like this guy, where even if you're armed, you are surrounded 360 degrees, they're going to take you down. You can't have the gun pointed in 360 degrees worth of directions. You can't. So why is this important in the light of manuals and practical application things? This right here is supposedly where the right is going, according to the mainstream narrative. We should be taking over streets. We should be, tackling people. We should be doing whatever we want. For obvious reasons, that is not happening. However, look at what we've been covering recently. These kinds of insurgencies, they start small, they work for political change, then they say that's not working, then they start escalating to violence. Since they're not getting any pushback, they're going to keep going. I know, Don, but in the past couple of weeks, like Biden has said, and blah, blah, blah. This particular thing happened 36 hours after all charges were dismissed against Antifa in like 3 major cities. This is not a thing where they're getting actual pushback. They are not actually having to deal with consequences of their actions. I will say that this is how we promote right-wing death squads, though. And when I say that, what I mean is, if the cops are just going to walk away from these places, and yes, they are going to come back for you later. They are. They're going to come try and track you down. They're going to come try and find whoever did the shooting, etc. But this is the kind of thing where if this guy had died, the local area is going to be pissed. And look, I know there have been people in the past who died, and, Don, but nothing happened then. The more often it happens, the more likely it is that this results in right-wing death squad kind of things. That's just how it works. I'm not advocating, I'm just simply telling you that's the truth. And look anywhere in the world, in history, etc. This is the brown shirts versus Antifa to begin with. This is the Kurds versus all of the people who are running Islamofascist states, etc., on and on and on and on it goes. Everywhere that you get this kind of in-your-face violent street extremism violence, somebody pushes back. And when that happens, it does not work out well. It doesn't. We are not going to have, right-wing death squad show up once and grease Antifa, and then that's it, it's over. That's not how it's going to work. Both sides will escalate once the violence starts. Okay, that, I think, you know what, I should pause here and take any questions about this, because I'm sure I glossed over something. I tend to when I know more about something than I probably should. Okay. You know what, let's check entropy question widget and see if that does it. There is nothing in the entropy question widget. Deathspec 1776. Stuff like this is why I think it's going to have to come to blows eventually. Yeah, exactly. There is a bunch of other stuff that is we can go over later. Texas 92 for $15. A little too close to home. Going to vote for the woman that I showed you on Gab. I doubt she wins, but her saying she'll pester till the cows come home is great. Well, look, this is the thing, right? Because this is how we get to right-wing death squads, is effectively the NRX. I realize that they won't be the ones doing it, but when everybody decides that there is indeed no point in politics, when everyone decides that there is just too much violence in the streets, then the answer becomes, okay, pick up guns. To hell with it. It's also why you see these massive crackdowns on guns coming, because the powers that be know this. Okay, let's do manual things. All right. So, strategy. Insurgent strategies are composed of interdependent political and military dimensions. Wonder if that's relevant today. The relative emphasis on each of those aspects and exactly how they are linked is shaped by the combination of opportunity, motive, means, factors, and the nature of the insurgent's objectives. Strategy is also shaped, in some cases constrained, by the identities around which the insurgency's narrative is constructed. Those identities often include deeply rooted cultures of war and codes of conduct that create expectations about how the conflict will be waged that are contrary to American ideas of what is normal or rational. They may also include deeply rooted historical social grievances, which the insurgent narrative co-opts to mobilize support. Counterinsurgents recognize the insurgency requires interdependent and linked dimensions that are not physical. Because they are not physical, there may be opportunity to exploit strategies where the various elements of the insurgency differ regarding specific courses of action and methodologies. Now, if we were a real country for even 5 minutes, this is a pretty relevant thing. We would be going after the physical and non-physical portions of Antifa. But we're not, right? And again, for the people running this manual, this is you. So when, as I keep trying to tell people, California pressures YouTube and Twitter and whomever else, which, by the way, that story came out the other day, to kick all of you off of social media, this is why. They are going after the non-physical, more intangible things about your insurgency. They are making an active effort to get rid of you. That's how this works. I know I've only been sitting here saying for 5 years now, as of a couple of months ago, that it's the government because they are doing these sorts of things, but nobody wants to hear that. So by the time that everybody figures out I'm right, I think it will be too late. Okay. Right-wing death squads tactics stream when, or just some resources for those without combat experience? Probably not soon. That is a good way to get nuked off the internet. Though there has been a long-standing request for, like, how do you clear rooms and that sort of thing. And I don't know, maybe one day that'll happen. Maoist strategy for revolutionary war. Get ready, because here we go. Although the fundamental challenges for insurgents have remained relatively constant, insurgent strategies have evolved along with the changing character of war. The period of modern insurgency is generally regarded as beginning with the Chinese Communist insurgency that began in the 1920s. Mao Zedong led a revolution in China, which led to his party taking over the adoption of Maoism as a revolutionary practice by others across the globe. These strategies have continued successfully, even as recently as 2006, Nepal, and may continue today. Mao put theories of strategy into practice, and it is easy to confuse them as elements of strategies or tactics such as mobile warfare, guerrilla warfare, protracted popular war and achieving specific political goals may be complementary. However, he made it clear that Revolutionary War should never be confined to military action. Its purpose, to replace existing society and institutions with new ones, requires a dynamic and depth that combines military, political, economic, social, and psychological parts to make a whole. Commanders must not fall into the trap of familiarity dealing with the military aspects of an insurgency, but rather recognize that all parts of the insurgency as both individual systems and individuals and a system of systems. Mao's strategy for Revolutionary War calls for it to be executed in 3 phases. I wonder if this is important. Now, relevantly speaking, Mao borrowed a ton of this from Lenin. It is Marxist-Leninism as run by Mao is where they're focusing, but hey, what do I know? Why have I been telling you to go read the source material for this for multiple years now? A. Phase 1 focuses on organization, consolidation, and preservation of regional base areas. Insurgents establish base areas in rural, isolated, ungoverned, or other areas where the government demonstrates little to no concern. Core cadres are established and volunteers are trained and indoctrinated. Individual or small groups of insurgents work to build support from the local surrounding population through agitation, subversion, propaganda, and intimidation. The most effective process to generate support demonstrate conspiratorial, clandestine, methodological, and progressive patterns. This base of support surrounds the regional base, providing an additional layer of security, as well as supply systems for food, recruits, and information. Insurgents promote a narrative that links grievances to a political program of change to mobilize the population, either co-opting existing identities or forging new ones, e.g., raising class consciousness among landless peasants. Hello, Antifa. How are you? Paramount to this phase is preservation of the nascent organization. For that reason, military operations will be very sporadic. By focusing on organizing, consolidating, and preserving regional base areas, the insurgency is building a strong foundation for the next phase. B. Phase 2 focuses on progressive expansion, involves an increase in guerrilla operations. I'm sorry. Phase 2 focuses on progressive expansion, involves an increase in guerrilla operations to increase the area of control by the insurgency. During this phase, insurgents step up the scale and intensity of attacks, terrorism, and sabotage, and begin directly attacking isolated or remote host nation security force bases and lines of communication. DHS buildings, court buildings, blah, 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 Antifa. Now, this is why, by the way, you are made out as horrible insurgent people because something January 6th. Such attacks are designed to erode both the control of the host nation government and its ability to provide services to the population, damaging both its coercive apparatus and its basis for legitimacy. Insurgents may also employ a strategy of provocation, anticipating security forces will overreact and thereby alienate the government from the population. The combination of continued political action and military operations creates gaps in the state control and administration insurgents often will fill with alternative or shadow governance, while demonstrating their ability to address grievances of the population. Characteristic of this phase is the strategic stalemate. As Phase 2 progresses, insurgents expand their ranks and procure additional armament in preparation for Phase 3. Understand that this is the part we're not getting to, like, at all. Right? We're basically stuck in Phase 1 for the we are the insurgency, right? And this is the thing, is the right is horrendously ineffectual with this simply because we make up all these stupid excuses about why we can't do anything. We get caught up in all of these ridiculous arguments, whereas the left is a long-form, century-long designed insurgency. That's their job. It's what they've been doing for a very long time. They've been creating the infrastructure for this since before most of us were born. Now, we, on the other hand, create no infrastructure of any variety. We do nothing. We do not do things to help each other out. We simply do not function as an insurgency despite being labeled as one. However, there are some really vague through lines of what an insurgency does that we sort of do, but we're a very ineffectual one. And by the way, if I was a third-party observer from another planet, I would, and I had read this manual and I was looking at the left and the right, I would say that, if I had to bet on a horse to win, it would be the left, because the left is actually progressing and the right is fumbling. Okay, moving along. Phase 3 focuses on decision or destruction of the enemy and occurs when the insurgent force creates an orthodox conventional army at division and regimental strengths. In this phase, guerrilla units fall from the main effort as they are in Phase 2 and become a supporting effort to the conventional insurgent army. However, they both operate together in coordination. The goal of this phase is the destruction of the coin forces. Shadow governance begins operating openly in areas controlled by insurgent forces. Characteristic of this phase is moving from the strategic defense to strategic offense. Presumably, if we were ever going to do this, and we're not, what this would mean is that the military came down and went, yes, we're on your side. This is effectively Civil War portion where presumably, the red states in the middle of the country would go, oh, okay, we're kind of done with the feds, and a bunch of the military would break off, and we would have actual fighting forces, as well as all of the various right-wing death squads that are, by the way, not materializing, but hypothetically could, and they would work in coordination. And we would be providing government services throughout the center of the country. The military would be doing military things, and the right-wing death squads would be both doing supporting activities and some kind of more menial things. Now, this is the argument for the people who call the right an insurgency. None of that's going to happen, but that's the argument. On the other hand, this is instructive when we look at Antifa, right? For all of you who are noticing that the multiple years now when I've said, look, we're getting a national police force the next time the left's in control, that we seem to be headed there at light speed, here we go, because that national police force is going to work like big Antifa. And Antifa is going to very likely be the more guerrilla arm of them. Okay. I have no idea how to say this, so we're just going to go with FOCOism. Is a strategy that contends that rather than mobilizing the population through clandestine political action and subversion, small groups of armed insurgents could accomplish the same goal through military action. Under this theory, attacks by small insurgent militias against the government would inspire a wider uprising amongst the population. Narrative remains important, but it is promoted through military operations rather than propaganda and clandestine organization. FOCOism is more a theory than a proven strategy, often referenced in conjunction with the Cuban Revolution, which largely conformed to Maoist doctrine, having had overwhelming support from the indigenous population. FOCOist strategy subsequently failed in the Congo, Argentina, and Bolivia, where its primary author, Che Guevara, was captured. Thus, FOCOism remains widely discredited, though it is sometimes conflated with other approaches that do not rely on political mobilization as a precursor to military operations. Such insurgencies typically involve a group with access to significant resources through state sponsorship or exploitation of available natural resources. Access to resources does not necessarily depend on the support or knowledge of the population. However, less dependence on building a political base creates a tendency to rely heavily on coercion for recruitment. In Sierra Leone, for example, nearly 90% of the Revolutionary United Front fighters were abducted and compelled to join the insurgent group. This is the child soldiers on drugs and why it doesn't work out quite as well as Leninist subversion, right? That's really the line that we're on here is you need the Leninist subversion side, otherwise raw military action doesn't work. It's worth noting that you can move to very heavily militaristic things after you've basically already won. And you see this in the Soviet Union, though it does cause you other problems. So what you end up with is the Soviet Union as it was. The premise of a lot of how the insurgency should work is the subversion should take the front, right? And you're going to have to sort of continuously do it. This is why, for everybody who's been watching all of the I don't know, I forget what they're called, the people who've been talking about Islam on the internet, and they talk about how the women in burqas will track down people and shame them mercilessly. This is more of a subversive tactic than it is a militaristic one. It's also worth noting that those places end up more stable than places where ISIS is going around just killing everybody. And so what you want is more women in burqas, less beheadings. The beheadings are still going to happen, but you need them to be somewhat rare. It gives teeth to the women in burqas running around going, oh my God, how dare you do this thing? But if they're pretty rare, then they stay kind of scary. If you pull the Che Guevara, then the violence becomes too normalized, and what you end up with is a perpetual war. The Algerian Front de Liberation Nationale, FLN, oh God, thank God for acronyms for once, demonstrated a variation of the Maoist approach that combined protracted war in rural areas with urban terrorist tactics. Between 1954 and 1962, the FLN waged an insurgency against France to gain independence for Algeria. Initially based in remote rural areas, the FLN invested heavily in political mobilization and waged an extensive guerrilla campaign against French forces, benefiting from sanctuary and material support from neighboring countries. In 1956, it launched a campaign of terrorist bombings in Algiers, the capital. Despite adopting compartmentalized cellular structure for its urban operations, the FLN organization in Algiers was defeated in February 1957. However, the FLN strategy of provocation was effective. Widespread torture and extrajudicial killings by French forces undermined support for coin operations in France and damaged French legitimacy internationally. By 1960, the French had largely defeated the FLN military, but the political impact of its coin tactics made it impossible for France to achieve its strategic objective, retaining control of Algeria. The Algerian War illustrated both the potential of compound strategies that combined rural and urban insurgent approaches and the overwhelming importance of the narrative and perception in contemporary insurgencies. Now, here's the thing nobody's going to want to hear. This is why you can't give up on cities. Seriously. Now, I realize that when I say that, somebody somewhere is going to go, you're advocating terrorism. Well, seems to be working for the left. What can I say? And this is the shtick, you need to influence the cities in some fashion. You can't just walk away and win this war. Now, that doesn't mean you have to convert San Francisco into based right-wing superhaven, but you do need to influence the cities, at least some. Okay, moving along. In the hopes of ever getting through this ever. Insurgency organization. While each insurgency will have its own unique organization that may change over time, there are shared general organizational characteristics that provide a general framework for analysis of insurgencies. A. Insurgencies develop operational approaches from the interaction of various factors and various networks. Insurgencies will develop and adapt their operational approaches and organizational structures to the current conditions of the operating environment. More specifically, insurgent organizational and operational approaches are directly related to the strength of the host nation government. If the host nation is strong, the insurgency will have to be more secretive and selective. Conversely, the insurgency can be bolder if the host nation is weak. So, an insurgency may begin organized in cells linked by leaders and may evolve into more of a hierarchical organization as it grows and gains popular support. Take the lesson. The U.S. government currently is pretty strong. And by the way, it's worth noting that this manual will provide you plenty of things to be doing if you are going to be an insurgency, and you basically are, whether or not you move to violence. You are a political insurgency within the United States. So, what do, right? Small cellular networks, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Somebody somewhere has been advocating this for a while. 1. Politically organized. Insurgencies develop a complex political structure before or at the time they begin undertaking military operations against the government. These groups stress consolidating control of territory through the use of shadow governments rather than through military power. The military component of politically organized insurgencies is subordinate to the political structure. Subordinate to the political structure. Military organized insurgencies emphasize military action against the government over political mobilization of the population. Insurgents calculate military success, and the resulting weakening of the government will cause the population to rally to the insurgents' cause. Military organized insurgencies begin with small, weak, ill-defined political structures, often dominated by military leaders. However, a military organized insurgency does not imply all of its members are fighters. Traditionally organized insurgencies draw on pre-existing identities through tribal, clan, ethnic, or religious affiliations, establish social hierarchies, a system of chiefs and sub-chiefs, for example, often substituted for political and military structures in traditionally organized insurgencies. Cellular organized insurgencies developed and are centered in urban areas. These insurgencies lack hierarchical political and military leadership structures, instead organizing around small, semi-autonomous cells. Urban cellular insurgencies generally rely more heavily on terrorism than do other types of insurgency. Their cellular structure and reliance on terrorism can limit their ability to mobilize popular support. This is Antifa, right? Because Antifa doesn't actually get popular support wherever they are. Look around. Go look at what happened with the Chaz, right? Political and military components. Insurgent structures may be generally broken down into two wings, political and military. Insurgent socio-cultural factors, approaches, and resources tend to drive its organization. Figure 2-1 depicts various activities these two wings may perform, from covert and clandestine actions to overt military actions. Progression up the diagram does not have to be linear. Insurgencies can perform many of these activities at any time and in any order or combination. We'll get to the figure in a minute, and we will stop and go over it. Political wing. Insurgencies will have some form of political wing, although some may only require an emerging political wing. The political wing is primarily concerned with either participating in a legitimate political process to further the objectives of the insurgency, undermining the process, or fighting the process outright. The political wing of the insurgency builds credibility and legitimacy for the insurgency within the population and potentially within the international community, undermining the legitimacy of the host nation government and its allies, while building up support for the insurgency. May serve as one objective accomplished through legitimate political participation. The political wing may downplay insurgent violence and subversion, some to the point of outright deception. Host nation disruption or denial of the legitimate actions of this wing tends to exacerbate the situation and create more contempt for the host nation government, creating another core grievance validating the insurgents' actions. Connections between the political wing and the military wing should be disrupted to the greatest extent possible without limiting the legitimate activities of the political wing that provide a legal voice to the insurgents into the political process. AOC calling for violence and pretending to be a neolib. Yep. Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, all of these people are the political wing of the insurgency. Now, being as you need to be reading this as though we are the insurgency, look back at everything they did with Trump, right? Oh, he didn't call for peace. He said fight like hell, right? He said there were good people on both sides. They are framing him up as the political wing. Forgive me, I am apparently unhealthy for the moment. Okay, let's go look at this figure here. So, insurgent actions, political and military. You know what? Hang on a second. I'm going to have to disappear for a second. Okay, let's take a look at this figure. So, insurgent actions, political and military. Down here at the bottom, creation of atmosphere of wider discontent through propaganda and political and psychological efforts to discredit government, police, and military authorities. So, this is pretty obviously what Antifa is doing. This is also why you see a lot of them arguing that the right should not support the cops, and equally speaking, doing things to support the cops. Shut up, there's audio. And so this is the game, right? You delegitimize police. This is also why when you hear them talk about red flag laws or any of these other things, and why the right doesn't like the cops doing things, blah, blah, blah. They're trying to make you the insurgent force. You are being put into the bottom category here. Agitation, creation of favorable public opinion, advocating national cause, creation of distrust of established institutions. This is why you see all of the nonsense talking about how the right doesn't like the FBI or whomever, because you are not supposed to you're not supposed to be trusting institutions, blah blah blah. And by the way, also why they do things that make the right distrust institutions. It makes you look more like an insurgency. Increased agitation, unrest, and disaffection, infiltration of administration, police, military, and national organizations, boycotts, slowdowns, and strikes. This is why you see the 60-day drawdown in the military, right? The implication is we have infiltrated the military. This is a thing that you would do to stop an insurgency. It has happened in the Middle East before, where we go and we take, the Afghan National Army, and we go through to see who is or is not loyal to, insurgents or whatever. We make them jump through some hoops, that sort of thing, in the hopes that we can weed out those people who are ISIS but have joined, for example, the Iraqi National Army or the Iraqi National Police or the Afghan National Army or whomever. Right? It is an attempt to get the insurgents out of your various government functions. They are doing this as though the right has actually done any of this infiltration. You see them going after the cops for the same reason. You see them going after national organizations, which can mean just about anything, for the same reason. And by the way, why they are so interested in whether or not the right boycotts things, right? So if we all say we're not going to buy Coke, the left is over there pointing it out immediately, right? Because it makes you an insurgency. And the thing is, people understand a lot of this intrinsically, right? But there's not a good manual to point it all out, the why you're doing and the what you're doing and all that sort of thing. You just know that if there is a disruptive section of the population, they are disruptive. So if you can be painted, you the right, as disruptive, you can be treated like an insurgency. Here we are. Infiltration of foreign, organizers and advisors and foreign propaganda material, money, weapons, and equipment. So, this is where who's that guy? The guy that's 3D printing guns that they're going after every day, right? They've sued this guy a ton of times, and I forget what his name is, but Defense Distributed, I want to say, is the company. They're treating him like the foreign actor, right? Because let's face it, the right doesn't actually have a lot of foreign help. But Cody Wilson, thank you, Chad. That's who you can put into this position. And equally speaking, when I don't know, the foreign organizers and advisors, God forbid we ever end up with anyone on foreign shores that we get help from, help them, etc. Who's the guy that did Brexit basically by himself? He's a prime example. And by the way, we are a prime example of foreign actors for the UK. Nigel Farage. When we send money to Nigel Farage, when Nigel Farage says Donald Trump is doing good things, right? Depending on which country you're in, right? So if you're in the UK, Donald Trump's the foreign actor. If you're in the US, Nigel Farage is the foreign actor. That's what we're doing. Recruitment and training of resistance cadres. This right here is why they go after militias, right? Because that is the supposedly resistance cadres, right? Those are the people who are supposedly going to be right-wing death squads that are about to go something, purge, blah, blah, blah. Even though it's not going to happen. Penetration into labor unions, student organization, student and national organizations, and all parts of society. This is why you see, I think just today, the Young Americans for Liberty or whatever, I don't know, Young Americans for Freedom, whatever they are, went onto a campus and was immediately trespassed and arrested, right? Because that, you can publicize that and say, see, they're trying to go after the schools and the kids and blah, blah, blah. They're trying to penetrate into student and national organizations. Labor unions are not going to be an avenue for us. They're not. But no less, that's what will be said. The time will come when labor unions start having their own little purges where, look, if you work with your hands, there's a very high likelihood that you are at least somewhat of a conservative human being, even though your labor union sucks. But when the labor unions come down and go, well, in the drillers union, there's this one guy who looks like he is very conservative, and that's them penetrating into labor unions, even though it's not. But the propaganda matters, right? Spreading of subversive organizations into all sectors of a country, right? So this is why we're continuously looking for the MAGA chud that is involved in whatever, the ethereal white supremacist that is everywhere. That's why, right? We're looking for spreading of subversive organizations into all sectors. nobody is naming the Klan most of the time. But this is why the alt-right, which is basically dead, but you see these people, oh, the alt-right is everywhere. There was a neo-Nazi in my Coca-Cola division. Yeah, sure there was. Also, yes, worth noting, this is the line that the left followed. Establishment of national organizations and liberation movements appeal to foreign sympathizers, right? This this right here is why you see demonization of basically everything that we have that moves to a national front, right? The the NRA is a prime example of this. I know. The NRA is not particularly pro-gun, is not particularly right-wing, is not particularly involved with anything that any of us care about. But this is why you see them demonizing the hell out of the NRA. Expansions of front organizations. This is why you see them talking about who gets funding from where. Because every organization is a front for something, and these things are meant to look legitimate. But if you really look into where whomever gets their money from, it's all the white supremacists, the alt-right, the neo-Nazis, blah, 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 blah. Intensification of propaganda, psychological preparation of population for rebellion. So, this is the kind of this is why they silence everything, right? This is why you get so much censorship. Is that according to the left, they're fighting this. That's what they're doing. And if you go listen to them talk about it, even the ones that have no idea what I'm talking about have never seen this manual. The NRA, hell, you just described the GOP. Fair enough. Intensification of propaganda, psychological preparation for population for rebellion. This is the thing that gets them to say we need to silence the right, right? Is that according to them, even the ones who, again, have never read this manual, don't know how this works, are not intimately familiar with overarching strategy, go listen to the things they say, because this is what they will tell you that they're fighting. They won't say it very clearly, right? But, the paradox of tolerance thing that has been so popular on the internet. Oh my God, well, we are the tolerant left, but you can't be tolerant of intolerance. This is what they're saying. This right here, right, is, oh my God, they're intensifying propaganda. They're psychologically preparing the population for rebellion. And we can't have that, right? Whether they know it or not, they're all following this playbook. Increased underground activities to demonstrate strength of resistance, organization, and weakness of government. Now, this is the kind of thing that when they tell you that you're a bad person because you want small community groups, etc., this is what they're focusing on. This is the kind of thing, because supposedly, or hypothetically, your gardening group where you all of the off the grid living stuff, blah blah blah, right? This is all the kind of thing they're talking about. Intense sapping of morale, government, administration, police, and military. So this is a thing that we're never gonna realistically be able to do, but if you listen to the propaganda about the right, supposedly this is what we're doing. We're making the various police and military, government administration, etc., not really think that they can get stuff done. Blah blah blah. We're making them feel bad and so on and so forth. You hear them get upset about this. Dawn, is this FM 3-24? This is JP 3-24. It's the same publication, but this is the joint pub. It is not one of the branches specific. This was released and then remade into FM 324. So, Increased political violence and sabotage. We hear about this all the time. The right wing is, we're supposedly about to do this any minute, right? We're supposedly mere seconds from being, I don't know, right wing death squads, from destroying bridges or I don't know, the electricity grid and blah, 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 blah. You hear the threat of this happening on the right all the time. You see it happen never. Overt pressures against government, strikes, riots, and disorder. I know, again, if you were taking any objective look at America, you would say, Don, that's Antifa. They're doing it right now. And by the way, you would say that about this entire tree. No less, keep in mind that you are the insurgents that this is focused on. So this right here is why every MAGA rally must be portrayed as some sort of riot, some sort of dangerous place, why we abstractly say X number of people died, even though it was all people in their 80s dying from heart attacks. You need to be portrayed as the insurgents near the top of this list, right? So this leaves us with the things that we are just threatened or told are going to happen soon and are literally never happening, right? So the top two here are guerrilla actions and large-scale conventional actions. This is the thing that, we're told, and by the way, make no mistake, a lot of the right would love to see happen plenty of times. I see people advocate for this all the time. This is, let's start the boog, let's take 100,000 people and march on Washington, or whatever it is, right? Guerrilla actions, large-scale conventional actions. These are we presumably near the end of what amounts to the insurgency use of force continuum, and hypothetically, it means the insurgency has either won or is powerful enough to conventionally fight. Okay, I think we are going to pause there for the day. I know this is taking forever. We only get through a couple pages a day, but again, there's a lot, and it's worth knowing. So, let's go do all the question things. But we're going to start with paid chat things as always. Staff Sergeant Sniper for $3. ASMR tonight featuring Ram Thornburg and possibly Tank and Bill. 2200 Eastern, so you people can all tweet at me at 2100 for the memes. Enjoy. Sam Nope for $3. Hey, Staff Sergeant Sniper, when does the stream start? Hagner the Viking for $100. Can't stay in chat or start the 1K hype train. Bank read at me. So enjoy $100, Dawn. Quote, if she isn't old enough to read, you're going to end up in some feed the pleb. Well, thank you, Hagnar. I will not be horrendously upset, though you can start 1K hype trains whenever you feel like it. Hagnar the Viking for $10. Also, F for Live Leak. Did Live Leak die? I saw a bunch of this going on earlier. So, who knows? Okay, we covered the others earlier. I know there are some things in the question tab that I should probably get to, so we're going to do that. Hunter, new merch in the merch store. Indeed there is, and in my incredible inability to shill for myself ever, that stuff is great. You should go check it out. I know that it has been a long time coming. Thankfully, there are other people who are now helping manage this sort of thing, so new merch may actually show up. This stuff is pretty awesome. Thank you to person who created it, who was mentioned in the previous stream. That is awesome. It is indeed pretty awesome. Go check it out. Link is in the description, basically wherever you're watching. It is also in the question widget, and I will just leave it there for a while. Here's an archive. I'm sorry. Brainy Smurf, here's an archive to find the rest of the rabbit trail. What are we talking about? Your friendly... What is this? U.S. Army and Marine Corps Counterinsurgency Manual. Yes, you could use that if you so chose. Yes, it was killed off Wednesday. Wow. Well, F for Live Leak. I was late. Big Nick, I was late. Does that mean I'm gay? Yes. Valjean KT for $10. Thanks for reading this manual for us. You are welcome, sir. I will leave the rabbit hole thing up there. So, for those of you who are looking into the Army and Marine Corps manuals, you will notice that the layout of whatever it is that you're reading is different than mine. That's because I'm using the Joint Pub. This was written by the civilian portion of the government, sort of like in DoD building, and then gets translated into what we hand troops from there. It's not really going to be any different, but there will be some differences somewhere. Don, did you see my comment about the Twitter thread of Antifa going over coin from their perspective? No. Suicide Ninja for $100. Jesus, guys. One of these days, we Cali faggots will have a meetup. Oh, do it in Nevada. I might go to Nevada. If I never set foot in California again, it may be too soon. Let's see here. Joshua Ham, could TPR be or become the shadow government, an organization to assist citizens and build social cohesion external to current government? Yes. There, you may notice that, and TPR is the 3%ers, or the 3% Republic. You may notice that a lot of the media about the 3% Republic is that they're all super duper evil. And so that's why, right? Because they have some capability of that. What is the nomenclature for the manual, FM, TM, etc., and its number, so it can be downloaded? Maybe a link to all, link in all coin manual streams. I think it is at the bottom of the description, but I will have to check. However, this is JP for Joint Publication 3TAC24. And the one I am using is Counterinsurgency 25 April 2018, validated for April 2020. So you will find, if you go get a different one, various small corrections. They usually don't matter that much. Again, we've gone over how military pubs get corrected. It's not amazing the way that works, but if you are looking for this precise copy, it is Joint Publication 3TAC24. TAC is a dash for all of you non-military junkies, so there's that. Suicide Ninja for $10, not a bad idea. I am much more likely to go if you do not have a location physically in Nevada where you do a meetup. There's some talk of maybe doing one in Arizona. Would you like an invite to that if it happens? I know that's not talking to me, but if you run one of these in Arizona, yes, I will go. Okay. I know I don't generally cover regular chat these days, but I am going to cover some because it's worth doing that. For example, what is that? Trovo does have I think the actual link to the precise, Trovo has the exact link that I am using to read this, so you can go over there and get that. You know what? I'll just drop it in chat for the moment. If you're really excited about it, it is a very long PDF. It's 242 pages. So, I mean, it's boring. What are you going to do? Damn it. Apparently I cannot copy things because I suck. I will also drop it in DLive, and since DLive keeps chat forever, you can basically at any point in the near future go over there and get it. What would an alternative universe California that had a statewide electoral college look like? Pretty much the same, mostly because of all the fraud. Don't get me wrong, the electoral college would help. You would see some capability of getting a governorship there ever. It just would not be amazing. Goes into microscopic ass bleeding detail. Well, we are going through all of it. So, you know, that is what we're doing here. It's a psychological, corrupt way of saying we can be all we accuse you to be because we're the good guys. Yeah. Karl Popper is the one that lefties refer to when they mention the paradox of tolerance. He was also the key person to introduce creation or criterion of falsifiability in the scientific method. Well, I don't really care what they reference. Again, meh. You'd think the head of the ATF was to send a signal. Might be. Um, let's see here. The left knows how to organize, coordinate. Conservatives, tough guy, lone wolf attitude will be their downfall. Yep. There is a lot on the right of like, yeah, man, I'll just do it myself, which is very exciting, and I'm happy that a lot of you are motivated. Get friends. Oh, my point was that this philosophical corruption also found its way into science. Yes. It's pretty mandatory for scientism. What can I say? Okay. We are not going to go through all of the things, but I will check current chat things. Thank you, Dawn, for going through stuff that matters and is useful instead of endlessly repeating the left are the real racist and very hypocritical. You're welcome. I wish it was more popular, if only because more people should know this stuff. And I mean that unironically. I know that it's very boring. I know that it's very tedious. I know that sitting here reading a manual on counterinsurgency is probably one of the least like raw excitement things that anybody does. But it's still. I would like to think that for those of you who have been watching this series intently, it's already proving its value, right? You can already see what's going on, get better perspective about how it's going, why it's going that way, etc. You already have a better grasp of why things work the way they do. Anti-Commie for $3. Remove the head of the ATF. Double entendre win. Well, there. Sure. Anyway, the reality of this is, in my opinion, that the longer or the more in depth, I guess, that we all get with this, the more we understand the things that are going on around us, which is important because a lot of people ask me how it is that I manage to make predictions like I do and that sort of thing, and it's simply knowing what they want, right? It's knowing where they're going, it's knowing the objectives, that sort of thing. And while going over Lenin or Mao or these things, not perfect translations today because a lot of things didn't exist in the 60s that are now very usable. The coin manual, on the other hand, objectively tells you how to use these things to do Leninist activity. Don, reach out to Culture War Criminal in Trovo DMs. I shouted you out several times on a stream and even played a clip of your coin manual vids, and he would help to get on the kill stream. As far as I know, me and Ralph are on pretty good terms at the moment. So, I mean, I don't know what I have to add to the kill stream, honestly. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. There is precisely nothing wrong with what Ralph does. He makes good content. Lots of people enjoy it. It's just not the kind of thing, when I'm not sitting up here in front of this, I am generally reading a ton of things, or researching things, and Ralph's content is much more entertainment based and somewhat. I don't mean this as a pejorative. It's sort of Jerry Springery the last time I watched it, And look, that it's good entertainment. That's not a bad thing. It's been good entertainment for years. I just don't know what I have to contribute to that. Don calling into the kill stream could be a nice boost to pleb viewership. Maybe. There has been a multiple years long attempt to get me over there. And again, I have no hard feelings against Ralph. As far as I can tell, Ralph's a pretty good guy. I don't dislike him in any way. I don't know that I have a particularly good place in that lineup, as it were. But there is an intense want for me to be there. Anti-Commie for $5. Glad it's being done. Real talk. Not calling you dumb, but I couldn't figure a way to get this stuff out because lack of institutional training, i.e. military, LEO, to bake in this. I don't know what you mean there. So most of, I'll answer as best I can. Most of this stuff does not require military training, right? Talk with CWC regardless. He is constantly complaining live on the kill stream that people should be doing something and organizing. Well, look, I'm not opposed to talking to Ralph. Again, Ralph seems like a nice guy. Walked up to him in real life and handed him a card and said, hey, get a hold of me. So, is he still doing internet blood sports? I don't really know. I don't follow Ralph that closely. Again, nothing against Ralph. Anyway, I will reach out to CWC or Cultural War Criminal or whatever it is. And we'll see what comes of that. But, as always, no promises. So, to the best of my knowledge, and I am probably not the person to ask ever, it is going to be relatively quiet from me for a while. And part of this is that real life things are happening in my life, and so I am trying somewhat heavily not to weigh down the rest of my life with the show much more than I have to. I apologize. This means content will slow down, but I, regardless, should still be doing the morning shows, except for a very short period of time. Hopefully, I may have to cancel one or two. But life is good. It is a positive thing, but it is taking a lot of my time. So I apologize that there will not be quite as much content. I will probably not be running weekend streams and that sort of thing for I don't even know how long. I have a lot to do. I apologize. When this is all over, hopefully we can go back to pretty heavy content production, that sort of thing. But in the meantime, the only thing I would count on is the Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning streams. We'll see how that turns out, but finally buying that house, yeah, basically. So I apologize, but so many things will get infinitely better whenever it is that happens. For example, all of the hey Don, you're kind of quiet things will go away because when it's my house, I'll modify it however I want. This is not, so I can't. I wish I was breaking ground on Pleb Ranch, but I will be doing things that will promote Pleb Ranch happening. Moving is not that stressful for me. I've done a lot of it in my life, probably more than most people. Anyway, that said, we are over the hour line, and so I am going to get out of here. We're not very heavily concentrated on regular content anyway. So in the meantime, remember, fight the progressives wherever you find them, and fight them like your life depends on it, because it does.